back to Q&A with S&A. I'm Andrea.
And I'm Shane.
And today we're really excited to be joined, not necessarily in the studio, but online with one of our fantastic sponsored athletes here at Aintree Group. And as we were just chatting before we started recording, long-time family connection, Kaylen Bassett. Thanks for joining us and spending some time with us today, Kaylen.
No, thank you for having me on the show, and looking forward to seeing where the conversation goes. So
yeah.
We'll
start with the very beginning, because that's a long story, and you just told us that you came across something in your keepsakes box that Mum had kept for a long time from Shane's family when you were born, which is kind of crazy because you're 28 now, so it's been in a box somewhere at Mum's for a long time. Tell us a little bit about what it means to you, and it's a family thing. This sport of canoe slalom is a family thing. You cannot do it without the support of your parents. So we'll start with the parents because we know we're going to talk about them. Tell us what it means to you to have the support of your parents, your mum, Jill, in particular, because she is super involved in canoe slalom and Paddle Australia. So tell us about that a bit to start.
Yeah, look, I'm very fortunate. At least I have to look at it that way. I don't really get a choice when the whole family's involved, do I? So I'm fortunate. My whole family's involved in the sport of canoe slalom. None of us knew about it, maybe 12 years ago before my younger brother got started in it. And between my mum, my dad, my then younger brother, and myself now all involved in the sport, it's one of those moments where it's really cool, and we've had this mutual growth and learning in the sport with it. So it makes race days really fun, and race nights maybe a little bit more stressful than it needs to be. Dad's off worrying about whether or not the race is going to fall apart the next day. Mum's worrying about other things, and then my brother and I are trying to focus on performing. But you have those moments where obviously the World Championships, but the smaller times where the first year that my brother and I made the national team together, and unfortunately we didn't get to race because of COVID, but that was just this whole, moment as a collective that we could just celebrate, and everyone was proud of each other. And even just my dad, one year he won the Paddle Australia technical official of the year, and to see how much joy that brought to our family was really cool, because it wasn't all just about the times and being on a national team or anything like that. It was just about how we've found this mutual interest, and it's kind of taken us away from home in ways, but brought home with us in others.
Yeah. Ivanhoe Grammar School was the place that brought you to paddling, I assume, because that's where we all started with our paddling life. I know it's certainly where our family became involved in paddling, and it's the reason why we know who you are, because obviously Shane's mum, who knew your mum and family, said, "Oh, you probably have heard of the Bassetts, they're at Ivanhoe and whatever." And then Emily started paddling, and then of course we heard of the Bassetts because you were part of, a really integral part of that community. When you are in a sport that is like canoe slalom, because we've had a podcast before with obviously Tristan, because as part of that, so we've talked a little bit about what this sport is like. It's a weird sport, right? You said, I think I've read something where you said you spent most of your childhood just playing conventional sport, like the usual things, tennis, cricket, footy, basketball, that sort of stuff. And then comes canoe slalom, where it's just weird and nobody's ever heard of it. I mean, they have now a little bit, but it's still pretty strange. How do you what do you do when your younger brother goes and starts doing paddling, and then all of a sudden you're at Penrith and you go, that looks like it might be a bit of fun?
I don't know. It was a bit of a weird sort of, not weird, but non-traditional introduction to the sport for me, in the sense of, I went through basically the whole high school period without knowing what canoe slalom was, and to hear the announcements, there's rolling on at lunchtime, and just kind of not turn my nose off it. It's not really interested in that. And it was one year I came back from going to France on a school exchange. I think it was some other trip, and mum and dad are like, okay, Lockie's going up to. I knew he was kayaking, but they're going up to Penrith for the school's national championships. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. I'm doing all these other sports that just, state competition or something like that, but not really national or anything like that. I was like, he sounds like he's doing all right, and got dragged up, and I was sitting on the side, and I was like, kind of bored here, like there's not a whole lot to do when you travel, with a family and no friends or anything, and you don't know anyone. So it was actually Gibbo was like, we're doing like the wild water classic. Does Kaylen, we need numbers, does Kaylen want to do it? And it was just paddling out on the flat water lake, like not interesting at all. No gates, no white water. And I think it took us like, maybe now it's a 3-minute loop, and I think it took us like 10 minutes to paddle around as a group in the teams, and I kind of enjoyed it. And then I also had mum be like, because then Lockie's paddling on the actual white water. She's like, why didn't you give it a go? And I was like, I suppose I should. I'm a bit scared of like, being trapped in the boat and things like that and falling upside down. And I was like, all right, I'll do it. But like in a fun yak, and she booked me in for not a fun yak because of course, what mum's like. And I really enjoyed it. Went back to Melbourne then later, and was like, I want to do this a bit more regularly. So it's like the after school classes or whatever it is at Melbourne Canoe Club, and kind of just took off from there. And it was just this weird feeling where it was a sport that I just became passionate about, in the sense that like I'd go down to the river after school because I didn't want to, not just because I didn't want to study, but like I'd just be down there for a couple of hours, and they'd be like, oh, it's it's now 6 o'clock or whatever it is. And I'd been through basketball and all these other sports where you kind of feel like you get dragged to training and things like that. But here was this sport that like I never thought once about like, oh, I've got to go to training. It was just like, I want to go paddling. And that, didn't look back, I guess.
Yeah. I think that's an attraction for a lot of young kids as well, isn't it? Because it's fun, and you're out in the open, and you kind of run your own race a little bit, don't you? It's not like you're doing training and it's hard. Like, I'm not going to minimize that, because you guys worked hard as young people, and you still do now as a part of your professional career. But it's not. It's a lot more free, I reckon, don't you think? Like, as in a training sort of situation, you can run your own race a little bit. Yes, you've got a coach, and your coach is telling you what you've got to do, but it's not like you're not, I guess, doing suicides or whatever they're called up and down the court. And
all the conditioning.
Hated them.
Yeah. No, definitely. The conditioning comes a little bit later, and now being the high performance side, there's a lot of conditioning. But I just remember starting back then, and I started at a later age. So there wasn't really much competition. Not saying that I was good, just more saying that like the only reason to go down was to paddle for yourself. It wasn't like you were trying to beat someone or anything like that. And that was almost better, I think, because it was just me, the river, and me trying to learn these skills to make myself better at paddling, and becoming addicted to that, rather than this feeling of needing to win or, losing or whatever it was. It was literally just meditative in that sense of like learning a new skill. So
yeah.
And there's different disciplines too. So there's kayaking, there's canoe, and then there's wild water as well. And you've had to go at all three.
Yeah.
How do you work out which one's your favourite, or which one you want to focus on? And how do you work all that out?
I always felt like more rewarded in the C1. I always felt like it was harder, but more rewarding. And I the first C1 I got, I just loved it. It was just like, no, I want to do C1. And I don't really have a kind of way to describe it other than that. I always felt like the kayak, you could be fast, but like it didn't have that same like sort of spark in it where the C1, it was like, this is really hard. But like when you do something, you just like get this kind of like, I don't know, boost out of it. So that side of it. And then the wild water, it's here in Australia, it's not quite the same as overseas. We have these big, high volume rivers or really technical white water, and it's just you in the river for 20 minutes. And honestly, I think if there was more white water like that in Australia, I might lean into doing wild water a little bit more, but it's not quite the same. It was just, I suppose I was reasonably fit when I started the sport, and that made me decent at wild water. So I just kept doing it. And then I got to experience these other opportunities overseas where like, this is so much fun, and it's just non-stop for 20 minutes. Like, slalom race is like 90 seconds, but wild water, like 20 minutes, like it's not too bad. So, yeah.
Speaking of the overseas sort of situation, and we talked about this with Tristan as well, a lot of what you do has to be overseas, right? So you spend a lot of time away from home. And what does a usual year look like for you if you're, in competition like focus mode? What does it look like? How much time are you home? How much time are you away?
Yeah, it's a good question. I suppose, like, to preface it, it's like it was hard to begin with when home has been Melbourne for
Yeah.
19 years or whatever it was, and then you pack up everything and you move up to Sydney, and so that in itself was quite hard for a few years. Like
Yeah.
you're away from home, but having been up here now for a while, it's a little bit different again. Home sort of moved, and there's that side of it, and I think that kind of made things a little bit easier in ways for than these prolonged trips overseas. But throughout a year, we'll be away for, we have our selection period, domestic selection period in typically Sydney, Western Sydney, for about a month at the end of January, February, and start of February. And then we have a nice little chill period. And then around Easter, we normally have national champs, and that's either again in Western Sydney or down in nice rural Tasmania. And it's nice to get down there as long as it's not snowing and too cold. And then we'll have about 3 World Cups in the end of May. And they're typically consecutive weekends. So you'll typically be away there for 4 to 5 weeks, just because you want to try and make the most of heading all that way across. And each venue is so unique, so different. So you want to learn the courses so that you can have the best performance you can. And then we'll have the World Championships maybe in the middle of the year, in July. So this year it'll be in Oklahoma in July, and that's about another 3 to 4 weeks in 2.5 weeks of preparation, a week and a bit of competition. And then you have another 2 World Cups at the end of the season around September. So that's then another 3 weeks. So what kind of happens from the start of World Cup 1 to the end of World Cup 5? Maybe we might come home. Maybe we'll stay over there. So there's been years where I've been away for close to 2 months. And then there's fortunate years like last year where I was just away for 2 6-week blocks. So it really depends. And I think this year's going to be another big year of being away from home, unfortunately. But I can't complain. Like, I get a year-round summer, I get a year-round tan, and get to spend a lot of time in cool places that a lot of people don't get to experience, I suppose. So you take it as it comes, and I'm very grateful for that opportunity to compete.
And so, and this year you said it's in Oklahoma, the World Championship. So you'll be going from Europe to the US and then potentially back to Europe. Is that how it will work?
Yeah. So that's the plan, is to go back and forth between across the Atlantic there, and the cool thing is that this is the site that the 2028 World Olympic Games will be on. So even though the games are in Los Angeles, will be a remote site in Oklahoma for 2028. So it's going to be this cool kind of preview of things to come in a couple of years' times, when all on the table.
So for you, what's your lead up like now? So at the end of this month, there's competitions in Penrith, right? Is that how it works?
Yep.
And then what does it look like for sort of the first, 3 months of this year?
Yeah, so this year's going to be quite unique, being in Oklahoma. So we've got a pre-Worlds training camp in Oklahoma. We don't normally get the fortune of having an international training camp in March. Normally we kind of push it back to May and train around the World Cups. But for myself, I'm fortunate after last year's result to have been pre-selected for this upcoming season. So I'll be racing the domestic season here with the Australian Open and Penrith Open. There'll be great ICF world ranking points, so they will contribute towards our individual world rankings, which is cool to have something to race for there, and try and watch your progression over a couple of years, see how you've climbed the ranks. Hopefully haven't dropped or anything like that. And then, Oklahoma training camp around end of March, and then home for nationals and before World Cup 1 again. So
so it's a big travel time for you.
It's going to be
jet lag.
A lot of time away.
Sorry to remind you about the jet lag.
No, please bring me back to reality. I need it sometimes.
So let's talk about the reason why you've gotten pre-selected, because that's pretty awesome. And we happened to be there at the time, and we're really fortunate. We are fortunate that we get to be there with you while you were paddling. Tell us about it, because I've read you say that you felt like you didn't belong, like you shouldn't have been there on that podium. And I want to know what is in your mind now. Have you changed your feeling about that, or is it still completely surreal that what happened for you that day happened?
I'll admit it's still a bit surreal with things, and in ways I still very much feel that way, and in other ways I've kind of come to terms with it. It's a weird like expression to say that you've come to terms with something that's like really exciting and you know this moment, but yeah, it was a real overwhelming feeling, I suppose, and I didn't really know how to deal with it at the time. Just having been in the sport, coming late, and feeling like, you know, I remember, as I said, like the first time my brother and I made the national team, it was like, wow, this is really cool. I didn't even think I would do that, and it was like an under 23 team, not to you know make that any smaller, but like that was an accomplishment.
Yeah.
And then to make my first like senior world championship team, I was like, that's an accomplishment. So always just felt like I'd done more than I already had kind of expected myself to when I first started the sport. Not to say I'm not ambitious or anything like that, because yeah, I suppose there was that feeling, but then this mixed feeling of like, I know I could have done better. I know I felt like, you know, the other competitors can definitely do better as well. And to have had that result, I was like, oh, I just don't know. Yeah, I'm just lost for how do I navigate this feeling?
Yeah.
And you know, I had to have a few friends kind of pull me aside and be like, mate, like, why do you need to feel like you need to navigate it? Just enjoy it. And,
Yeah, correct.
and it was actually then having this great supportive, you know, C1 team with Tristan, Ben and Lockie and the rest of them that, you know, they had a go at me for not bringing my medal to the a celebration afterwards. And yeah, they're like, dude, just enjoy it. Like, and so since then, that's definitely helped me kind of come to terms with it. But definitely still hungry and wanting this upcoming season to kind of match that, I guess.
Yeah. For the listeners at home and for the people watching the YouTube video of this podcast, Kaylen was part of the Australian team at the World Championships in Penrith last year. It was a big thing for Australia to have a World Championships. It doesn't happen all the time. I think it was 20 years
ago or something?
20 years between.
Yeah, so it was the 25-year anniversary for the Sydney Olympics. And then the 20-year anniversary from the 2005 World Championships, which is the last time it was hosted in Australia. And since then, like the other largest event would have been an under 23 World Championships in 2014. So that was still 11 years. So we hadn't had, even within the Southern Hemisphere, outside of Rio Olympics and World Championships in 2017, I can't remember the last time we had a World Champs in the Southern Hemisphere. So
it was a very big deal. It was big, and Paddle Australia it was a really big event for Paddle Australia as well, because it's, you know, bigger now than what it would have been 20 years ago, and certainly bigger than it was at the 25 years ago at the Olympics, because obviously with Jess Fox and whatever, you know, her amazing abilities, she's brought the sport in Australia to really quite
people are more aware.
People know what's going on. So it was a big deal. And for everyone listening, Kaylen came home with a bronze medal, which is amazing, like really amazing in the competition, because they're world-class paddlers. It wasn't like in a little Australian competition. I say that not minimising it at all, but the Europeans are massive, aren't they? Like there's a big following of canoe slalom in Europe.
Yeah, massive. And it was our first men's medal since Robin Bell in 2007 at a World Championship. So we've definitely been building it, like watching Tristan race throughout the season, like he was itching closer, and myself just a little bit behind him, and to feel like, you know, we as a collective had finally overcome that little next hurdle was it was massive for you know, not just our C1 program but the program in general.
And as you alluded to with the team, the C1 team, so the teams play sport with this as well. So you get 3 of you paddling down in unison and doing a bit of fancy footwork around to make sure that you're not too far ahead and not too far behind. There's a whole bunch of rules with regard to that. But the men's team of Australian team also did a massive job, and I think I've never heard an audience scream so loudly to try and push you on. It was so close.
It was. I'm still a little bit filthy is not the right word, but it still stings a little bit. I think. We had a run. We recognised like early in the season that we had an opportunity to try and snag a medal at the games snag a medal at the World Championships in the teams event. So we trained a little bit in it, and we had a good run, and we felt like those moments where you just cross the line and you feel like that was a good run, and I think we thought that we were in a really good position for it, and we were we finished 4th in the end, but when it comes down to the last 3 teams all being the teams to beat you for that position, and you end up sitting there in 4th, it was still stings. And I must admit, like when I was then sitting there on my individual race day, I was sitting in the hot seat with a few paddlers to go. I had this moment where I was like, I can't do this again. Like I can't. I'm not letting myself celebrate this moment until the last person goes down, and even then, like in our sport, you can have protests or late last second judge calls added on. And I was like, once the race finished, I was still like, no, I'm waiting for someone to like put a time down, So the teams event was an amazing accomplishment from Ben, Tristan, myself. I don't know the last time that we had a 4th place result in the teams in the men's C1. So. That in itself was a pretty cool event, and we get to go back next year. That's a great thing. We get to go back next year and try and improve on that position. So we'll be ranked 4th in that event, and we'll try to back it up next year for sure. Yeah,
amazing. It was as someone who was in the audience, and I was not sitting because nobody was sitting. There wasn't a person who was sitting while you guys were doing your run, and then the time afterwards as well. We were all like, I'm sure that the entire stadium was just sort of like holding their breath, waiting for that result.
We couldn't remember the last time. Sorry to interrupt there. We couldn't remember the last time that like the teams event. The margin between 1st and 6th place was like 3 seconds or something like that. Normally like 1st to 2nd is like that. And so to be a part of that, competition is one thing, but also to know it's that close is just,
Was that one where
it is what it is, unfortunately.
There might have been a 50 in that one by one of the top 3. Yes. No, anyway. I reckon I had a good angle on that one, but anyway, we'll move on.
I make peace with it.
Yes.
Shane is a bit more than an armchair judge. I think he's judged a few times for your mum as an official at national juniors events and stuff. So he was sitting there going, "Oh, there's no way I would have let that one go as a judge." But
I think it is life, Shanes, isn't it? By the sounds of it. If it means we get another medal, then we need more Shanes. I'm not going to.
Maybe I'll get him to talk to your mum, and he can do some sort of training and see what we can do.
Look, even if you're busy, just come and train some of the other judges. Not that we have. I think a lot of the judges are quite good. And that's not a comment on that.
No, exactly.
It was definitely a 50, but anyway, we'll move on.
It's one of those sports, though. We've talked about this before as well. It's there's a really fine line, isn't it? Like there's and anything can go wrong. It's not like I guess athletes are the same. And they would say like a 100-meter race for an athlete. There's not a lot that can go wrong. Yes, their bodies can fail or something like that, but you've got like water pounding you. And the water doesn't work in the way that is predictable. Like you can watch, particularly at Penrith, we were watching it, and the water will go one way for one run, and then for the very next run, it will push another way, and then the wind will blow, and something will happen that way. So it's really unpredictable. How do you work with that? How do you train for those things?
I think for me, it's been a big part of the mental side of training yourself, I suppose. Like, even though I came to the sport quite late, I've always felt reasonably fit and reasonably, competitive in that aspect of things. And a big thing that I've had to work on over the past couple of years has definitely just been being more mentally present and working on acceptance and just trying to be in the moment of things. And I guess it just took a home world championships to finally have this moment where it hit another level. And I remember sitting before the heats run at the world championships, and my biggest thought and it was a fear at the world champs was not making it out of the heats. I have this great support network, friends, family, yourself, so many people behind me that just want to see you do well. And to have this feeling where you're I know they've seen me compete before, but they've never seen me in person compete. And they're right there on the bank, I can see them 20 meters away. I can make out the details of everyone's faces. And I was real scared of not making it through the heats. And at the same time, I had this moment where I was like, you know what, I don't really care. Yeah. This is pretty cool right now. And I'm just going to be super selfish and just actually just enjoy this moment and just accept whatever will be and kind of just take everything in. Mm-hmm. And that helped me be really, really present. And so it was then the same with the world champ, the world champ finals, where I heard this some times go down. I was like, oh, these times are faster than they were in the last round, and it's the same course. And I knew I could put down a fast time as well, but I had a moment where I was like, damn, it's going to be one of those finals where everyone goes faster. It doesn't matter what I do. People are going to be faster. But I then just surrendered to that same feeling where I was like, well, I'm in a world championship final, the first time in 20 years here in Australia. As an Australian athlete, thinking about it now, I've got goosebumps again. And I just want to enjoy and indulge in this moment. And it helped me be really present and in the moment of things. And it's when you do that, you have this flow state where you kind of, the water's changing, but you just kind of sit there and you go, oh, well, it's not that, but it's this instead. So I'm just going to do this. And just being super adaptable and just in the moment, I suppose. It's one of those things when, you're driving home and someone maybe cuts you off or something like that. And you're just like, oh, well, off you go. And you're just really calm and it just is what it is. And it was, that's been a big thing that I've been trying to work on. And I think it's been a big key to trying to get things moving in a real or a positive, productive manner for me, both in the sport and out of the boat. So, that's kind of my takeaway from racing a world championships, learning in the rest of my life as well.
Yeah.
And just when you're at the starting gate, are you analysing where you're going to put the boat in different spots on the course, or is it just instinct and you just say, right, I'm just going to pedal as hard as I can and I just know I've got to put it here, and it all happens? Yeah.
I think that's the cool thing about our sport. So many people have different, stimuluses and focuses in it. And it's what made our team's event really quite a fun challenge to work with Tristan and myself, and very similar, very different though, where for me, I'll plan everything before the run and I'm going to come here and I'm going to try and hit the line and hit the water right here. And that's where I want to go. And, then when we're in a teams, I'm like, so where are you going? Because I'm following him and, I want to know where you're going so I can plan around it. He's like, oh, I'm just aiming for that, I guess, but we'll see if I get there. And I was like, trying to hold it together a little bit. Right? I was like, kind of need to know a little bit. But, it's this cool thing that we've been training for so long now that there's that little bit of trust and you learn that what works for you and also what works for other people and try to accommodate that little bit. And I think it's just a great sort of feeling in life and in things in general. Everyone's got different personalities. So you just got to understand yourself and the environment you're in and try to account for things and accommodate things. And but for the World Championships final, I was like, I know exactly what I want to do and I'm going to try to push that little bit more. And I've been down this course hundreds of times now. So I'm just going to just back myself to, aim for things consciously and let myself adapt subconsciously.
Let's talk a little bit about the courses. Penrith is your home course now. Obviously, that you didn't start at Penrith though. Well, you probably did on an Ivanhoe camp, but you would have paddled on the Yarra River at Westerfolds,
Yeah.
like every night. So when you're talking about, paddling between 4 and 6 at night, it was literally just down the back garden, wasn't it, for you to get onto the river? And there's not a lot of white water at the Westerfolds course, so it's not necessarily as challenging as what you're used to. But Penrith is the course now. It's where you're probably there more than once a day paddling along there. Aside from Penrith, which has to be your favourite because it's your home course and you're probably paid to say that it's your favourite, which course outside of Penrith is your favourite to paddle on?
Ooh. Favorite course or favorite
Both.
course to train?
Whatever.
You can.
Oh, that's a hard question. I've got a few that are up there, and for different reasons. And I think that my favorite course specifically would have to be either the course in the south of France in Po, a small town in France. It's just this nice, natural feeling, fast water course. And it's just in the middle of this park, which is really cool. Then I love paddling in London as well. London was built for the 2012 games, and it's just kind of known as the big playground, I suppose, of courses where everything's just that little bit bigger, that little bit more exciting, that little bit, spectacular, I suppose. And then outside of that, maybe Prague. Prague's a pretty cool course. It's super friendly. There's you can do anything on the water. It's perhaps not the biggest drops on the course, but there's just non-stop features, and it's right on the edge of town. So you have your session, and then within 10 minutes you can be back in Old Town Square afterwards. So that's a pretty cool package as a whole in Prague. And the racing is always great. The Czech fans, they love it, and just everything about Prague is awesome. So
yeah,
that they would have to be my top 3.
Yeah, awesome. Excited for the new course that is being planned up in Queensland? Gives you another option for home course training. What is the conversations going on? Because obviously you're focused on training for the next events, so you don't sort of think too far out in advance. But in general, because you're around people from Paddle Australia a bit, is there excitement about a new course being available in Australia? Because we really don't have a lot here. Penrith is the focus. Yeah.
Definitely excited, and a bit of backstory. I find whitewater venues really fascinating and cool, and actually wrote my university thesis on the sustainability of whitewater venues. So that was quite a fun, year project to have been working on, and looking at all different courses actually with in mind, this is the sort of research that could help the kind of development of a new course, say in Brisbane. So I've definitely had a fair bit of interest, but at the same time, there's probably been a little bit of fatigue around it, just because there's been so much unknown and so much back and forth with it that, to be honest, I don't really know what's happening. There's the Queensland government has came out in the report saying that they were going to be building the venue, but I haven't heard anything in a while. So just try to focus for now on Penrith. Penrith is such a great course, and there's one of those feelings where it's it's going to be so great to have a second course, but you're also a little bit nervous that you want, how rare and scarce it is to have a second course, that you want someone to do it well, and there's a little bit of nervousness around that, I think, amongst some of the paddlers as well. But if they can pull off another Penrith just somewhere else, that's amazing. And the course here, it's been running for over 25 years now, so that's fantastic, especially compared to the lifespan of most sporting venues in general. Don't tend to see a life cycle of that longevity. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned that you did your thesis on the, how whitewater venues work, because for us, for Europe, I guess it's not as difficult because they do have quite a lot of rivers where they've adapted the river to suit a whitewater course, and we haven't got the same sort of thing. Obviously, there's a few rivers around Australia that you can do whitewater on. How much of what you do now do you think, because you're not just a whitewater paddler, you're not just a canoe slalom athlete. You are a person with a job and goals and aspirations outside of that. Do you think that what you're doing with your slalom will translate to things that you can do outside of that, like from an engineering perspective and from understanding construction and building? Because it's sometimes people don't have any correlation between what they do and what they want to do in the future. Is that something that's interesting for you, or are you just going to go, okay, I don't want to have anything to do with what happens in the whitewater world after that?
I don't really know. I definitely explored avenues down that way with things. And I find it very interesting and fascinating, and would love the opportunity to work on something like that. But at the same time, there's not many, practitioners that are working in that sector, and there's not much ongoing demand for that sort of thing. So it's maybe a little bit of like a dream in ways, or it would be something really, really cool to work towards. But in terms of how it sort of fits into planning and things like that, I'm not too sure at the moment. At the moment, just very much trying to be the best athlete I can be, and started working in property development last year as well. So that was a new step. And so 2025 was a big year for a lot of things, having finished my degree and things like that. So at the moment, I'm not too sure to answer that question. But in terms of being an athlete going into working, that was there was definitely a lot of learning there, but also a lot of moments where you go, I can see parallels between being a high performance athlete and being just trying to be, a performing individual in any aspect of my life, I suppose, having that kind of drive, having that ambition, but also being able to introspectively reflect and learn from, your mistakes and try to be working towards things. There's definitely a lot of soft skills, hard skills, and maybe not hard skills, but and life experience that you gain along the way that I think has definitely benefited me. There's definitely been times where, I'm 28 and I only just had finished my my undergraduate degree, and you're like, let's be honest, maybe a little bit behind where I would have been if I wasn't in the sport. But you then have these other moments where you're like, well, actually, I recognize that I have a lot of experience from, my time in the high performance side of things. So it's been a lot of learning last year in good ways. So
yeah. How are you finding the balance? How do you balance things? Because obviously there's work and there's training and there's social life outside of that. What does the balance look like for you?
Not the best, if I'm honest. Part of my personality is very much, I'm a very driven individual, but I tend to then put myself last at times. So last year it was definitely tough at times. I was only working part-time, whilst, trying to be a full-time athlete and travel overseas. And I was really fortunate. My employer, they took me on board, and they were more than happy for me to work 3 days a week in Sydney CBD. So it's some long days there when it's, training and getting off the water at, getting up for training at 6 for a 7:30 session, and getting off at 8:30 on the train by 8:50, getting into work at 10, leaving work at 6, and then getting off the train at 8 and going straight to the gym, and then coming home and cooking dinner after that, just to do it all again a couple of days a week. There was a lot of hard time and not much time for then social life after that, because the other days I'm trying to catch up on training sessions and things like that. But this year, like I said, I learned a lot last year, and this year I think the biggest thing I've learned is the need to find that balance a lot more, and have a good quality of life on top of trying to push my absolute limits. So at 29 this year, it's still learning, don't you? So it's the biggest learning is that you can never stop learning. So.
Yeah, exactly. I think we all could take a leaf out of the, take a step back and look after yourself book. It doesn't matter what age you get to, and fully understand that, you've got a pretty short space of time to be able to be at your fittest from an elite perspective. From the, just one probably last question, because otherwise we could keep talking all day, and no doubt there'll be other opportunities, because I'm sure that you'll be, winning more medals, and we can talk to you again. So when you're working towards something like what you are, because there's, you're now going to Oklahoma, and that's the place where the next Olympics are. For you, Kaylen, what is it that you're thinking about over the next couple of years? Because the Olympics are a couple of years away, and there's this, there's stages, obviously, for you guys when you're working towards this. What is it that is going to continue to drive you, no matter what you do? Like, what is it in your mind that is driving you to do this?
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually having this conversation yesterday with a good friend of mine of, talking about motivations and, what drives people. And it's different for everyone. And I was saying yesterday that there's a degree of like needing to prove myself as a motivation. And look, this year's going to be no different. I'm going to feel the need to prove that last year's result wasn't by mistake, and that I'm capable of that level of performance. So there's that side of things. But at the end of the day, like when I got into this sport, the thing I wanted to be was just the best paddler I could be. Like, and so far that's taken me to, places all across the world and racing for my country. And so that's still a very big driver for me. I just want to see where I can go with this. If that's, a world championship medal, then it's a world championship medal. But if that's, potentially working towards an Olympic medal, let's see how far I can go with this. Like, it's this real big open-ended thing. And, I'll take that as like the bigger overarching motivation, with then this little underlying motivation of needing to prove myself along the way to get me through those hard sessions sometimes. Then I'm kind of happy to lean into both of those things at times. It's just how it goes, and I think keeping it simple is such a big thing for me. So I want to maintain that. Yeah,
awesome. Thank you so much for spending the time with us today. We probably asked every question we could possibly ask without going into, we could do a 2-day long podcast with you guys, with your team, your C1 team, because there's so many things to ask, and the three of you are such different people, and we've really appreciated being able to be involved with what you're doing in particular. And, it may be a family affair for us, but it's been such a huge buzz to watch you out on the world stage. And I think we've still got goosebumps when we think about that World Championships.
Awesome. Yeah,
it was
great.
Really awesome. Yeah. So when you go out on the course, it's not, you don't have to prove anything to us, because you already have, but we just get a huge buzz from watching you and your teammates perform out there. It is a really invigorating thing for us to do as sponsors of you, but also as friends of your family. So thank you so much for giving us the time today. We really appreciate it. And as I said, we will be doing some more interviews with you. There might be Q&A on the road. I can't guarantee you will be in Oklahoma, because we're kind of avoiding that part of the world right now, but we definitely wouldn't mind going to the south of France and spending some time with you there. So hopefully sometime soon we'll get to do some Q&A on the road and watch you paddle in person, because it is a buzz. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
No, thank you for being part of my journey, and you've been instrumental from the small Yarra River up to the world stage. So, no, thank you.
Thank goodness Shane is no longer judging those tournaments. I'm not sure that he's quite...
would have done much better.
We went and watched Emily do freestyle paddling at the National Freestyles. It was super cool, but we've got no idea what we're watching. Like, we had no idea what was going on. So thank
just
goodness.
Just hands for everything.
Well, it's
that's
like,
it.
But it was fun. And, we love sitting by the river watching you guys do stuff. It is such an absolute buzz. The smiles on the faces of all the younger paddlers, and the fact that they talk about you guys, they're constantly, you're still in their lives, even though you're winning medals and off at Olympics and all of that sort of stuff. You are the kind of people that are really down in the grassroots with the teams coming through, and it's super important. So thank you on behalf of those young people as well, because it's so cool to be part of.
Yep, and well done.
Yep.
No, thank you.
Oh yeah, you've got to wave the medal around. He did show it, but it's so cool. Thank you for showing it.
Is there another other side? Oh, it doesn't say much on the other side.
No, No, the back's kind of, I can't see.
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah,
the little
that works.
So it's got like, little platypus
The
on the back
platypus.
and
Yeah.
then like
Yeah.
the ICF on the front. But
Yeah, beautiful.
yeah, I kind of like the back the best. So
Yeah. It's cool.
Nothing against the ICF.
Does it
of
just
course.
go back in the sock drawer now? Is that where it sits?
Have you got
or-
it hanging
yeah.
at home somewhere? Has Mum taken it?
no, I haven't got
everywhere?
it hanging. I've actually got like my dresser, and it's got my uni degree sitting just like flat on it. And then I've got my world's bib on top of that, and then my world's medal on top of that. So
Yeah.
I've got a few accomplishments just collecting dust on the dresser, which is
I think
not the
it's-
best.
Yeah, I was going to say. I think
I need to get a few
a
things
framer.
framed. So.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much
Right.
again, Kaylen. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of Q&A with S&A. Listen wherever you get your podcasts. We'll share Kaylen's website and some info, which you need to update your website because you haven't done an update
do.
lately. So
No,
maybe
I
talk
haven't.
to somebody who you know is really good at marketing. She can probably help you with that side of things. But we'll share all the details, and we'll also share details about up-and-coming races. I think people can watch online on YouTube, and I think KO Sport had the world champs and stuff. So it's fun to watch. So if you are listening to this podcast and you want to watch the guys and girls paddle, then get on KO and YouTube. It's very fun.
Yep.
Thanks, Kaylen.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.